I walked into the conference room wearing my best navy suit. Not flashy, just sharp. Professional. The kind of outfit that said I knew what I was doing without having to announce it. Across from me sat a man who looked about 30, maybe 32. He was leaning back in his chair, fingers dancing across his laptop keyboard, barely glancing up when I entered. His hair was styled with that deliberately messy look that probably took 20 minutes to achieve. His shirt was untucked. Trendy glasses perched on his nose. He didn't stand up. Didn't extend his hand. Just gestured vaguely at the chair across from him. Have a seat. I sat down, placed my portfolio on the table, and folded my hands. Waited for him to make eye contact. When he finally looked up, I saw it immediately. That flicker of surprise. Then assessment. Then dismissal. All in about 3 seconds. So, he said, glancing at a paper that I assumed was my resume. Erica Palmer. Interesting background. Thank you. We're really looking for someone more contemporary, though. He said it casually, like he was commenting on the weather. This role needs someone fast, flexible, someone in tune with the current generation. You understand. I understood perfectly. I was 52 years old, and he'd already decided I was too old before I'd said more than 2 words. What he didn't know was that I wasn't actually here for the job. I was here to evaluate him. Because in exactly 8 days, I'd be his boss. My name is Erica Palmer. I'm 52 years old, and I've spent the last 30 years building, running, and selling companies. I started in logistics at 23, worked my way up from dispatch coordinator to operations manager to COO. By the time I was 44, I'd built a regional logistics company worth $20 million. Sold it. Made enough money to retire early. I spent the next few years doing what people dream about. Traveled. Spent time with my daughter before she went to college. Consulted with startups. Mentored young entrepreneurs who reminded me of myself 3 decades ago. I didn't need to work. Didn't need another corporate job or another title. But I missed the challenge. Missed building things. Missed the satisfaction of taking something broken and making it work. That's when I started looking at acquisition opportunities. Companies with good bones but bad management. Places that had potential but were bleeding talent and clients because leadership had lost its way. Frontech Solutions caught my attention 6 months ago. They'd been a respected mid-sized consulting firm specializing in operations optimization. Good reputation. Solid client list. But over the past 2 years, they'd been hemorrhaging talent. Client retention was down 40%. Employee reviews on Glassdoor were brutal. I did my research. Talked to former employees. Reviewed financial statements. And I realized the company wasn't broken. The leadership was. So I put together an investment group, made an offer, and bought 53% of the company. The board approved it. The deal closed quietly. And then I decided to do something unconventional. I wanted to see the culture firsthand before anyone knew who I was. So I applied for a job. The interviewer's name was Brad Simmons. 35 years old. Director of Talent and Innovation. A title that sounded impressive but meant very little. He'd been with Frontech for 7 years, promoted quickly, and according to the internal documents I'd reviewed, he was responsible for most of the recent toxic culture issues. But I wanted to see it myself. Wanted to understand exactly what employees were dealing with. So I sat across from him and let him show me. Walk me through your experience, he said, not really looking at my resume. I started talking about my background in operations, my experience scaling companies, my strategic planning work. He interrupted me after about 30 seconds. Right, but that was all pretty traditional business stuff, right? We're looking for someone who really gets modern workflow optimization. Agile methodology. Digital transformation. I'm familiar with all of those, I said calmly. Sure, but there's knowing about something and actually living it. Our clients want fresh perspectives, not yesterday's playbook. Fresh perspectives. Code for young. He asked me a few more questions, checking his phone between my answers. Asked about my availability to work late nights and weekends. Asked if I was comfortable in a fast-paced environment. Every question was designed to make me feel old, slow, out of touch. After exactly 11 minutes, he closed his laptop. Look, I'll be real with you. You've got experience, no doubt. But this role needs someone who can keep up. Someone contemporary. I don't think you're the right fit for where we're going. I smiled. Thank you for your honesty. No problem. We'll be in touch if anything changes. We both knew nothing would change. I shook his hand, thanked him for his time, and left. On my way out, I passed 3 other candidates in the waiting area. All under 35. All checking their phones. In my car, I sat for a moment processing what had just happened. Then I opened my email and sent a message to my assistant. Meeting confirmed for next Monday. I'll be introduced as Chief Strategy Officer. Make sure HR has Brad Simmons' file ready for my review. The acquisition hadn't been announced publicly yet. The board knew. The executive team knew. But the staff didn't. As far as Brad and everyone else at Frontech were concerned, business was continuing as usual. They had no idea new ownership had taken over. No idea major changes were coming. I spent the next week reviewing everything. Employee files. Client contracts. Financial reports. Exit interview data. The picture that emerged was exactly what I'd suspected. Frontech had good people doing good work. But leadership had created a culture where only certain voices mattered. Where age, gender, and cultural fit determined who got opportunities. Brad Simmons was at the center of it all. 15 formal complaints in 3 years. All dismissed or buried. Women reported being talked over in meetings. Older employees reported being excluded from projects. Junior staff reported ideas being stolen and rebranded as his own. But he was charming with executives. Always had an explanation. Always blamed someone else for problems. And he'd been promoted twice. I pulled his interview notes about me from HR. The feedback form had one line checked, not a cultural fit. In the comments section, he'd written, lacks modern energy. Would slow team down. Too set in old ways. I printed that page. Put it in a folder. And waited for Monday. The leadership town hall was scheduled for 10 a.m. The entire company gathered in the main conference room and via video call for remote workers. Brad sat in the 3rd row, scrolling through his phone, barely paying attention as the CEO went through quarterly updates. Then the CEO said something that made Brad look up. As you all know, we've brought in strategic partners to help guide our next phase of growth. I'd like to introduce someone who'll be leading that transformation. Please welcome our new Chief Strategy Officer, appointed by the board, Erica Palmer. I watched Brad's face from my position near the door. Watched confusion, then recognition, then horror flash across his features as I walked to the front of the room. He choked on his coffee. Actually choked. Someone next to him patted his back. I stepped up to the podium and looked directly at him. Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Some of you may recognize me from recent interviews. Others may not. But I'm looking forward to working with all of you to build something better. Brad's face had gone from pale to red. His hands gripped his coffee cup so hard I thought it might crack. I spent the next 20 minutes outlining my vision. Respect. Collaboration. Merit-based advancement. An end to gatekeeping and favoritism. When I finished, the room applauded. Most people looked genuinely excited. A few looked nervous. Brad looked like he wanted to disappear. After the meeting, he tried to leave quickly. I caught him at the door. Brad, do you have a moment? He turned, forcing a smile. Of course. Welcome to the team. Thank you. I'd like to schedule a one-on-one. Let's talk about your role and how we can work together effectively. Absolutely. Looking forward to it. But his eyes said something completely different. I didn't fire Brad immediately. That would have been too easy. And more importantly, it wouldn't have fixed the systemic problems he represented. Instead, I watched him closely. I sat in on meetings he led. Watched how he spoke over women. How he dismissed ideas from older team members. How he took credit for work others had done. I talked to his team members individually. Asked how decisions got made. Who felt heard? Who didn't? The patterns were clear and consistent. Brad had created an environment where only people like him succeeded. Young, male, willing to play politics instead of doing actual work. I asked HR for his complaint history. They gave me a thick file. Complaints about interrupting. About taking credit. About dismissive comments. About creating a hostile environment for anyone who didn't fit his narrow definition of contemporary. None of the complaints had been escalated. All had been explained away. That's just Brad's communication style. He doesn't mean it that way. He's passionate about innovation. I began building a case. Not just against Brad, but against the culture that had protected him. Our first one-on-one happened 2 weeks after I started. Brad swaggered into my office like he owned it. Sat down without being asked. Leaned back in his chair with studied casualness. "So, welcome to the team," he said. "It's always cool when seasoned professionals bring perspective." Seasoned. Another code word. "Thank you. I wanted to talk about some projects you're leading. Walk me through the client retention initiative." He launched into a presentation full of buzzwords and empty phrases. Synergy. Disruption. Paradigm shifts. When I asked for specific metrics, he got vague. "We're still gathering data. It's more about the qualitative impact right now." "And the recent project delays?" "3 clients have complained about missed deadlines." He shrugged. The intern team dropped the ball. "I've been trying to get them up to speed, but you know how it is with entry-level folks." "What about the Meyer account?" "We lost them last month." "That was marketing's fault. Their messaging didn't align with what I'd promised." Every question, he had someone else to blame. Never his responsibility. Never his fault. "Brad, I'm seeing a pattern where accountability seems to live everywhere except with leadership." He smiled. "With respect, Erica, I've been here 7 years. I know how this company works. Sometimes you have to trust the process. The process that's lost 40% of our clients." His smile tightened. "We're in a transition period." "We certainly are." I decided to test something. I wrote a proposal under a pseudonym, a strategic plan for optimizing client onboarding using a hybrid model I'd developed years ago. It was solid. Innovative but practical. Backed by data. I submitted it through the internal suggestion portal, claiming to be a new employee. Brad was assigned to review it. 3 days later, it came back rejected. His feedback was attached on a sticky note. "Sounds too old school. Doubt clients would go for it. Let's keep thinking fresh." Old school. There it was again. I scheduled a meeting with the client he'd mentioned, a major manufacturing company looking to streamline operations. Presented the same proposal under my own name. They loved it. Asked to fast-track implementation. Signed a contract extension worth $300,000. 2 days later, Brad sent an email to the executive team taking credit for the innovative approach that had saved the account. He didn't know I'd kept the original rejection with his handwriting. I started having casual conversations with team members. Coffee in the break room. Lunch in the cafeteria. Quick Zoom calls with remote workers. I asked simple questions. How are things going? What's working? What could be better? And people started talking. Carefully at first, then more openly as they realized I actually listened. A senior analyst named Patricia told me she'd stop contributing ideas in meetings because Brad always shot them down or claimed them as his own later. A project manager named James said he'd been passed over for promotion 3 times despite excellent performance reviews. Each time, someone younger with less experience got the role. An intern named Riley almost left tech entirely. Brad called my ideas cute in front of the whole team. Said I needed to think bigger. But when I did think bigger, he said I was overstepping. Every conversation added another piece to the puzzle. This wasn't just one bad manager. This was a systematic culture of dismissal and gatekeeping that had infected the entire organization. And it all traced back to Brad. I compiled everything into a presentation for the board. Exit interview data showing talented people leaving. Client churn metrics correlating with Brad's projects. Complaint documentation that had been filed and ignored. A timeline showing the company's decline matching his promotions. And I included my own experience. The interview where I'd been dismissed as not contemporary. The rejection of my proposal as too old school. The credit-stealing email. The board meeting was tense. Some members had been Brad's champions. They'd promoted him. Defended him. Overlooked complaints because he delivered charismatic presentations. "You're saying our director of talent is our biggest talent problem?" one board member asked. "I'm saying he's symptomatic of a larger cultural issue. But yes, he's actively driving good people away while protecting a narrow definition of what talent looks like." I showed them the data. The complaints. The patterns. "He interviewed you?" another board member asked, looking at the feedback form. "He did. Spent 11 minutes telling me I was too old to keep up. Didn't realize he was talking to his future boss." The room went quiet. "What do you recommend?" the CEO asked. "I recommend we address this systematically. Starting with the people who enabled it." I called Brad into my office the next day. Just the two of us. No HR. No witnesses. Just a conversation. "Brad, I want to talk about leadership. About how we treat people here." He nodded, guarded. "Sure. You've been here 7 years. You've had significant influence on our culture. But that culture has problems. People don't feel heard. They don't feel valued. And our results show it. Every company has growing pains. This isn't growing pains. This is systematic exclusion. I'm giving you one chance to adjust your approach. I expect collaboration. Respect for all voices, regardless of age or background. Genuine accountability. Can you do that?" He leaned back in his chair. That same studied casualness from our first meeting. "With respect, Erica, I've been here longer than you. I know these people. I know what works. Maybe we should let the culture speak for itself instead of trying to force change." So I did exactly that. I restructured the organization. Moved decision-making power away from Brad's direct control. Promoted people he'd overlooked. Created cross-functional teams that didn't require his approval. I announced a new anonymous performance review system. Not just top-down evaluations, but 360-degree feedback where everyone could share honest observations about their colleagues and managers. The response was immediate. Within 48 hours, over 30 reviews had been submitted. Brad's aggregate score, 1.7 out of 5. The comments were devastating. Dismissive. Takes credit for others' work. Creates hostile environment. Plays favorites. Refuses to listen to input. One comment said simply, "He's the reason I'm looking for other jobs." I compiled the feedback and scheduled another meeting with HR. What finally sealed Brad's fate wasn't the performance reviews or the complaints or even my own experience. It was an email. I'd sent a confidential strategy memo to the leadership team outlining changes we'd be making. It included sensitive financial information and plans for restructuring. Brad forwarded it to another manager. Added a mocking gif and a caption, "Guess who's playing CEO?" Face with rolling eyes. Apparently experience from the 90s counts as strategy now. He meant to send it privately. He hit reply all instead. The email went to the entire executive team. Including me. Including the CEO. Including the board chair. I stared at my screen for a long moment. Then I forwarded it to HR with a simple subject line: insubordination and breach of confidentiality. The mask had finally dropped. And he'd done it to himself. The HR meeting happened the next morning. I brought everything. The interview feedback. The rejected proposal. The complaint history. The performance reviews. The email. The HR director, a woman named Paula who'd been with the company for 15 years, looked exhausted. "I knew this was coming," she said. "We've had concerns for years. But he always had executive support. And the people complaining were typically women or older employees, so their complaints were easier to dismiss." Yes. I laid out the full case. Pattern of discrimination. Hostile work environment. Breach of confidentiality. Insubordination. "Do you want to place him on a performance improvement plan?" Paula asked. I thought about it. Thought about giving him another chance. Thought about the possibility of change. Then I thought about Patricia, who'd stopped sharing ideas. About James, passed over repeatedly. About Riley, who'd almost left tech entirely. "No," I said. "I want him terminated. Today." Paula nodded. "I'll prepare the paperwork." Brad was placed on immediate administrative leave while HR processed his termination. He wasn't allowed back in the office. Security escorted him out within an hour of my meeting with HR. I sent a company-wide email. I didn't name Brad, but I made the message clear. Effective immediately, Frontech is committing to a culture of respect, inclusion, and accountability. Leadership at every level will be evaluated not just on results, but on how those results are achieved. Gatekeeping, discrimination, and dismissiveness will not be tolerated. We value all voices, all experiences, and all perspectives. The response was immediate. My inbox flooded with messages. "Thank you. I've been waiting years for someone to address this. This gives me hope that things can actually change. Finally feels like a real company again." One email came from Patricia, the senior analyst who'd stopped contributing ideas. "I have 3 proposals I've been sitting on for months. Can I share them now?" "Absolutely," I wrote back. "I want to hear all of them." Brad requested a meeting before his formal termination. HR advised against it, but I agreed. He showed up in a suit. Hair perfectly styled. That same confident swagger. He thought this was a formality. Thought his charm would work one more time. Thought he could explain his way out of consequences. He had no idea what was coming. I didn't stand when Brad entered my office. Just gestured to the chair across from my desk. He sat down, crossed his ankle over his knee. Casual. Confident. "Look, Erica, I think there's been a misunderstanding." I slid a folder across the desk. He opened it. Started reading. I watched his confidence drain away page by page. The interview feedback calling me not contemporary. The proposal he'd rejected as old school that had landed a major client. 17 formal complaints over 3 years. For documented instances of taking credit for others' work. The forwarded email with his mocking commentary. "You kept all this?" "I keep receipts," I said calmly. "Especially when people underestimate me. Some of this is taken out of context. All of it is documented. Dated. Corroborated by multiple witnesses. This isn't a misunderstanding, Brad. This is a pattern. And it ends today." He shifted in his seat. The swagger was completely gone now. "What do you want me to say?" "Nothing. This isn't a negotiation." I stood up. Straightened my blazer. Looked him directly in the eyes. "Brad Simmons, your employment with Frontech Solutions is terminated effective immediately. You'll be escorted from the building by security. You have 1 hour to collect personal items under supervision. HR will contact you regarding final paperwork and benefits. He blinked. You can't do this. I've been here 7 years. I know people. I have connections. You had connections. Past tense. The board approved this termination unanimously. This is age discrimination. You're firing me because I'm younger. I'm firing you because you created a hostile work environment, demonstrated consistent pattern of dismissing and discriminating against employees, breached confidentiality, and showed insubordination to leadership. Your age has nothing to do with it. Your behavior has everything to do with it. He stood up, face red. This is a mistake. I made this company relevant. I'm the future here. You were its past, I said quietly. And you were the problem. Security will be here in a moment. 2 security guards appeared at my office door. Brad looked at them, then back at me. You're really doing this. I really am. He grabbed his folder from the desk and walked out. His swagger was gone. His shoulders were hunched. He looked smaller somehow. I followed at a distance as they escorted him to his desk. He grabbed a framed photo, a coffee mug, a jacket. Didn't speak to anyone. The office had gone quiet. Everyone watching. I saw relief on some faces. Satisfaction on others. A few people looked scared, probably wondering if they were next. As Brad passed through the main workspace toward the exit, something unexpected happened. Someone started clapping. Slowly at first. Then others joined. Not loud. Not mocking. Just acknowledgement. Brad's face went red. He walked faster. The door closed behind him. I returned to my office and sat at my desk for a long moment. Then I opened my laptop and got back to work. There was a company to rebuild. The culture shift wasn't immediate. Change never is. But within weeks, the difference was noticeable. Meetings ran differently. People spoke up. Ideas were heard regardless of who suggested them. Patricia submitted her 3 proposals. All 3 were brilliant. We implemented 2 immediately. James, the project manager who'd been passed over repeatedly, was promoted to senior project manager. Within a month, he'd streamlined our entire project workflow. Riley, the intern who'd almost left tech, was offered a full-time position. She accepted. Client retention started improving. People stopped checking job boards. The Glassdoor reviews slowly began to shift from 1-star complaints to 4-star compliments. It wasn't perfect. We still had work to do. But we were moving in the right direction. And we were doing it without Brad's innovation. 3 months after Brad's termination, we held a company-wide celebration. We'd landed 3 major clients, completed 2 successful projects ahead of schedule, and received recognition from an industry publication. I stood at the front of the room and looked at faces that had seemed beaten down just months ago. Now they looked engaged. Energized. Hopeful. This success belongs to all of you, I said. You did the work. You brought the ideas. You built the relationships. Leadership's job is just to get out of your way and support you. After the celebration, Riley approached me nervously. Can I ask you something? Of course. How did you know? About Brad? About the culture? You'd only been here like 2 weeks before you started changing things. I smiled. I interviewed here. Before anyone knew who I was. I wanted to see the culture firsthand. Wait. You interviewed? With Brad? I did. He told me I was too old. Too out of touch. Not contemporary enough. Her eyes went wide. Oh my God. It wasn't just about me. It was about understanding what everyone else was experiencing. You can't fix what you don't understand. She was quiet for a moment. Then, thank you. For seeing it. For actually doing something. Thank you for staying. For giving us a chance to do better. 6 months after the changes, a business journalist contacted me. She was writing about workplace culture transformation and wanted to interview me about Frontex turnaround. I agreed, but I was careful. I didn't name Brad. Didn't air personal grievances. Just talked about the importance of inclusive leadership, valuing experience alongside innovation, and creating environments where everyone can contribute. The article ran the following month. The headline, "Too Old to Work. How a 52-year-old executive quietly transformed a toxic company culture." The piece went viral in business circles. My LinkedIn blew up. People sent messages sharing their own experiences with age discrimination, with being dismissed, with being told they didn't fit. One message came from a woman who'd been laid off at 55 and told the company needed fresh energy. "Reading your story gave me hope," she wrote. "I thought I was done. Now I'm starting my own consulting firm. Thank you for proving them wrong." I responded to hundreds of those messages. Each one a reminder that this wasn't just about one bad manager or one toxic workplace. It was about a broader culture that equated youth with innovation and experience with obsolescence. A year after I joined Frontech, I saw Brad at a coffee shop downtown. He was sitting alone at a corner table, laptop open, nursing what looked like his third or fourth coffee. He looked tired. The polish was gone. The swagger had disappeared. He didn't see me. I could have walked past. Could have avoided the interaction entirely. Instead, I walked over. "Brad." He looked up. Recognition flashed across his face, followed by something that might have been embarrassment. "Erica. How are you?" "Fine. Working on some freelance projects. Consulting." "Good. I hope it goes well." He nodded. Didn't quite meet my eyes. "I heard Frontech's doing well." "We are. Good people doing good work." Silence stretched between us. Then, "I'm sorry. For what I said. In that interview. And everything else." I studied him. Trying to determine if he meant it or if it was just another performance. "I hope you learned something," I said finally. "About leadership. About respecting people regardless of their age or background." "I did. The hard way." I nodded. That's usually how the important lessons come. I didn't stay to chat. Didn't offer to help or extend an olive branch. Just acknowledged his apology and moved on. Some people need to face consequences to change. Some never do. But that wasn't my problem anymore. 18 months after I joined Frontech, we held our annual leadership summit. I stood at the podium looking out at a room full of managers and directors, some inherited from the old culture, most promoted under the new one. "When I joined this company, we had a problem," I said. "We were measuring success by all the wrong metrics. Youth over experience. Charm over competence. Style over substance. And we were dying because of it." I pulled up a slide showing our numbers. Client retention up 60%. Employee satisfaction scores tripled. Revenue growth at 28% year over year. These numbers tell a story. But they're not the real story. The real story is in this room. It's the people who were here all along, finally being heard. It's the new people we attracted because word got out that Frontech was becoming a place where talent was actually valued. It's all of you choosing to build something better. I paused. Let that sink in. Age is not a weakness. Experience is not obsolete. And respect is not optional. Remember that as you lead your teams. The room stood and applauded. Not because I'd given some inspiring speech, but because they knew it was true. They'd lived it. Today, 3 years after that 11-minute interview where Brad told me I was too old, I still run Frontech Solutions. We're profitable, growing, and recognized as one of the best places to work in our industry. I'm 55 now. According to Brad's logic, I should be 3 years more obsolete. 3 years more out of touch. Instead, I'm building the most successful phase of my career. Age is not weakness. Patience is not passivity. And kindness should never be mistaken for naivety. When Brad told me I was too old for that job, he revealed everything I needed to know about the culture. He handed me the blueprint for exactly what needed to change. And firing him wasn't revenge. It was leadership. It was protecting the people he'd dismissed and creating space for the people he'd held back. The best revenge isn't making someone suffer. It's proving them so completely wrong that their opinion becomes irrelevant. I didn't need to explain myself to Brad. Didn't need to justify my worth or defend my value. I just needed to show up, do the work, and let the results speak for themselves. That's the power of experience. You don't waste energy on people who underestimate you. You just quietly build something they could never imagine. And then you let them watch from the outside while the company they thought they owned becomes something better without them. Some nights I think about that interview. About sitting across from Brad while he dismissed me with buzzwords and condescension. About walking out knowing exactly what I'd be walking back into. And I smile. Because he thought he was interviewing a candidate. But I was interviewing him. Evaluating whether he deserved to stay in the company I was about to transform. He didn't pass. If you've ever been told you're too old, too late, too out of touch, remember this: age brings perspective. Experience brings wisdom. And the people who dismiss you based on a number usually don't have the depth to recognize real value when they see it. Let them underestimate you. Let them make assumptions. Let them believe their own hype. Then prove them wrong so completely they can't pretend they were right all along. That's not revenge. That's just success. And it's the sweetest victory of all. Speech balloon: have you ever been dismissed because of your age? Drop your age in the comments and tell us how you're proving them wrong. Pushpins: share this with someone who needs to hear that experience isn't a liability, it's a superpower. Crown: because success isn't about age. It's about who's still standing when the dust settles. And I'm still standing.